wanted to stop by to talk about the ego. I have recently encountered a few situations where the ego has come up. We live in a society where Beyonce sings about she has a big ego. We live in a society that, it's all this positive thinking about, who we are and enriching ourselves, right? Positive talk, self talk, reaffirming ourselves, encouraging, ourselves. Like when you're having a bad day, this is, what you should do. And, we talk ourselves off of ledges. And it's a lot of things that we do, in my opinion, that can be self sabotaging. And one of those things is talking about the ego, where you empower yourself to get up. It's a thin line between empowerment, it's a thin line between ego. But I saw a movie, and in this movie, there was a guy, and he talked about putting on a suit. And in this suit, it was the image or the perception of who he thought he was, not who he really was, or not how other people, received him, perceived him to be, but it was who he thought he was. He thought he was a professional, he had it going on, he had a lot of money. While that may be the case, but on the inside of him, there were some shortcomings and there were some things that kind of got in the way of his perception of himself and how everyone received him. So, with that, I walked away from that movie feeling like when the ego is so big, sometimes that gets in the way of self help, it gets in the way of others trying to help. It impedes, your growth, and it stops, your openness to hear. And a lot of times when people tell you things about you that you can't see, it's the ego that's in the way of you actually being able to hear and receive what it is that they're saying. So sometimes it's not this attack that we perceive it to be. Sometimes when things are nuggets are dropped on us and things are actually said to us, those are things that we need to hear at that time. Now, whether or not we receive them, want to hear them, want to work on them, want to do something about it, that's something totally different. But I always hear people say, well, maybe it's not my time to get this. Maybe it's, not my work to do, or maybe, it's not for me right now. But if you encounter a situation and somebody drops a nugget on you, someone tells you something, someone makes a deposit, that means that the universe saw it befitting for you in that moment to receive that word, that message, that nugget. So, with that, I just stopped by to encourage us to continue to check ourselves. Sometimes it's great to have confidence, it's great to love ourselves, it's great to want to be better, pick ourselves up, encourage ourselves. But at the same time, we need to be humble enough to hear. Because every person that we encounter, it's an experience for a reason. Everyone that comes our way, they cross our paths for a reason, and we need to have our ego in check enough so that we can really receive what's for us in that moment from that person. It's not for us to say, well, it's not time yet. Well, if you got the message, or you had the conversation, or you crossed paths with someone that may have told you something that you didn't like, it's not always personal. Sometimes take the emotion out of it. Sometimes take, your personal feelings out of it and listen to what they're actually saying so that you can hear. And we will be surprised at where we can go and be and the things that we can do if we're just actually able to minimize that ego, reduce the ego's appearance and presence in our life so that we can humble ourselves to hear. I have had so many situations recently where the ego has had to dissipate so that I can hear, so that I can receive love, so that I can receive the word, so that I can get the lesson. Because lessons are to be mastered and not mimicked. We get to repeat these lessons over and over and over again until we master them, which means you'll keep going through the same thing. It's like a dog chasing its tail until you get what's for you. So remember, if you don't remember anything from this video, try to be mindful of your ego and how big it is. Also, is it possible that you feel a way about yourself that other people, do not? And that's possible, right? But what I'm saying is it that you feel this way about yourself, and it gets in the way of you receiving some things. It's fine to have confidence, it's fine to love yourself, it's fine to encourage yourself, yes, but in all of that, be able to hear. When you get the words, when you get the message, when you get the downloads from people, when you cross paths with people and they are imparting wisdom or knowledge, be able to hear and receive, because that is how we grow. That's where the love is. That's where the maturity comes in. So I would just like to encourage you today. Continue to elevate, continue this path. I know it gets hard. I have had some very challenging times in my life within the last 7 weeks. But when I tell you that on today, I can stand and say, I have had to swallow my pride, I have had to swallow my ego, and I have had to go back and apologize. I've had to go back and love. I've had to go back and do some redos. I've had to sit down and rethink some things. But at the end of the day, I had to be sure that I checked my ego so that I can hear. Because I'm not bigger than a message. I'm not bigger than a lesson. I'm not bigger than a misunderstanding. I'm not bigger than I didn't mean it that way. I'm not bigger than I got some stuff. I got some issues and some things that I need to work on and through. I'm not bigger than that. So with all of that, and having said that, I encourage you today to do the exact same thing. Keep that ego in check so you can hear, so you're able to receive, so you're able to love, so that you're able to get, so you're able to experience, so you're able to be, so you're able to breathe. These are all things that the ego gets in the way of. So I'd like to uplift you today, encourage you today, continue to elevate. And until next time.
You had enough, murdered my ego when you